everybody, it is Romania Black, and we are on episode 11 of Bloom Into You. And oh, it's starting to get a little bit chilly outside. I got my hot cup of coffee. I am ready to dive into this episode because this series has been so good so far. I've really enjoyed it. Last episode there was a lot of back and forth between Nanami and you and talking about how they're each feeling about the relationship. They both want to invest further into the relationship, but at the same time, they're both afraid that by investing, they're going to drive the other person away. And it's just like, what? You silly geese. So I'm super excited to jump into this episode. My internet is working again. Thank goodness. But I already had Edgar give me this file, so I'm like, well, I'll just go ahead and use the file, but my internet is back to working, which is super exciting. So yay, huzzah. But I'm really looking forward to diving into this episode, and we only have 3 episodes left, which is crazy. So I don't know what we're going to be building up. We're obviously leading up to the play. The play is going to be the big thing, but we've got this acting camp to do, so I'll be very curious to see how the acting camp goes, but I'm going to plug this in. There we go. I'll be very curious to see how the acting camp goes and what all we get, but we'll just see where it takes us. But before we start, I want to give a quick thank you, not only to YouTube and Patreon, but to the philanthropy tier over on Patreon for supporting me. I greatly appreciate it. So thank you, Alex Cornejo, Anime Annie, Be Happy, Bryant Reed, Dana Damage3245, as well as Danny Don Mai, Danger Zone, Devorin, Destiny Marie, Ichu, Eric, Fisho, Ghostly Turnip, El Freya, Lyndon, Liam Poles, Matthew Palfinier, Murphew, Nameless Monster, Nicholas, No Nickname, Alexandra Q, Shimoyama Sunspots, Trails, Translucent Men. Thank you all so much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. And if you want to see me talk about more like Yuri or Yuri adjacent but not really actually Yuri shows, I'm also doing Revolutionary Girl Utena on the channel, so go check that one out. We're having a fun time over there, let me tell ya. But anyway, we're not gonna waste any more time. We're gonna dive right in to Bloom Into You, episode 11. Make sure I got the right subtitles on for this, because I have typically, some of the videos like immediately go to English dub, and it's been frustrating. So, but anyway, we're going to dive right into Bloom Into You, episode 11, and we are going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. All ready for the camping trip? Uh-huh. Yay! I like that Kaomi's coming too. Aw, she doesn't want to spend the night. Boo. These 2 boys. Nice. All right. Oh. Uh-huh. Only 10 days, you say? That's still a pretty long time for them. 10 days. I mean, that's almost 2 weeks. I'm surprised. I didn't realize that their summer break was that long. I honestly, for some reason, thought summer break was only like a week in Japan's school system. I didn't realize it was like 3 or 2.5. Interesting. But I don't know exactly. I guess I don't know how long summer break is for Japanese schools, which is something you all will probably comment about down below. But yeah, that's interesting. You don't say. On the one hand, having not been in a long relationship like that, I was in kind of a long distance relationship for like 6 months, and that's the longest I've ever been in a relationship. And it was kind of long distance, and we didn't see each other for moments at a time, for days or weeks. But I was also in high school, and they were like, had just graduated high school, the scandal. But yeah, I was kind of like you. I never treated it like it was that long of a time, but then again, I'm not like Nanami, so 10 days for them is the longest they've been apart since they've gotten together, so I guess that makes sense. Hmm. All right. Let's see what we get. All the sunflowers. I love sunflowers. Mm, right. But they all have different opinions. Maki's like, come on, get to it. Oh wow, and it's her with the short hair. Oh. Oh. Ooh, interesting. Oh, wow, and that's how Kiyomi is interpreting her character. Yeah. Mm. I really like this concept actually. It's really cool. I would read this play. Oh. Hmm. Who chose to be with you? Hmm. It makes sense, but is that really like how Nanami would be? Yeah, I like that Nanami's like, please, so we can memorize the right words. Aw, I like Dojima is like calling her the next Shakespeare. That's super cute. That's really sweet, actually. I mean, how fired up are you with memorizing? That's basically what this is. Uh huh. Aw, that's cute. All the curry. Aw. Memorizing is a hard gig, y'all. Where are they staying at? Why would it not be? Right. Right. No. Ah. Oh no. So she's never been to like a sauna with any of them before? Hmm. I'm not letting them be alone together. Oh, I love it. Yeah, no, she's not gonna let them get away with that. That's funny. I guess they are at the school, so maybe they're just in one of the side rooms. He was like, what of it? Oh, because she's played softball before. Mm-hmm. And I like that she's actually kind of, uh-huh. Hmm. Yeah, she's like, I'm not gonna let it bother me. Everything's fine. We're all good. Yeah. Cute. I love her little headband. Mm. Ha! Ah! Oh my gosh. It's like literally a love triangle right here in the tub. Meanwhile, these two, they're fun, I guess. Like every shonen conversation. Oh my god, and they think totally different things. Uh, Maki's like, feel free to die alone. Because that's what's gonna happen. Interesting that she's in between the two of them. I love her little braid. That's so cute. Oh. Yeah, it is interesting to see her with glasses. Ha! Because it's super rare. She's like, get to sleep, you crazy kids. Aw, it's cute to see you with her hair down, too. Aw. Hmm. Oh. Majority rules. That's funny. It's interesting Sayaka and you have something in common. Mm. Oh. Oh. Meanwhile, she's thinking of you. Wow. Wow, I love that she's thinking of her, she's thinking of her. Wow. And she's thinking the same. It would have been dangerous. Oh. Wow, the three of them. Yeah. All thinking the same thing. Ah! That's so good. Uh, so, okay. She said that, remember? Oh, they both are in a community theater group, of course. Tomoyuki. Ichigaya. Huh. Oh, does she remember him? Uh-huh. Okay, I was like, I wondered if there was some connection to the sister. Oh. Hmm. Well, you're all amateur, but fine. Yeah. Is he going to talk about that? Oh. Uh-huh. Yeah, wow. I want him to talk to her about her sister. Hmm. I like that he doesn't compare her to the sister, which is nice because I think she expects that, but it would be interesting. What's up, Sayaka? Balancing a triangle. Nice. All these geometric shapes in the GL and the BLs. Oh, yeah, do all the muscle movements. Ah. Yes, exactly. Good point. Nice. Do your vocal warm-ups. Huh. Oh, and then Akari watching them. Aw. And you, of course, is blushing about it. Why is Sayaka fanning herself? Of course. I wonder if he'll tell her that she's way more prepared than her sister. Ah, I wondered if we were going to talk about this. Ah, interesting. It's not more than platonic. Oh my god, that's really that's really informal. Ah. Huh. I wonder, was he interested in her sister at one time? Interesting. She's going to ask about it. Uh-huh. Hmm. Oh. Oh. She's not like Nanami. Oh. Oh, wow. Not like you at all. Wow, she's not like Nanami at all. Uh-huh. Yeah. She wanted her little sister to think highly of her. Oh. Oh. Wow. Yeah, you're not alike. And that's not a bad thing. And of course, she's back there being downhearted. He's like, thank you for giving me pyrotechnics. She's like, why are you calling me by my first name? I was about to talk about that. Miyako. Okay, so that's her name. Mm. Yeah. Hmm. Oh. Oh. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, what's up with you? Ha! Oh my god. Don't let this man near anything that could be flammable or destroyed. Uh, I want them to do like Yuri on Ice and be like, you only live once, and then just like dance around with it. Why can't we have that? Oh my god. Don't light the forest on fire, you heathens. Just like, I can't trust you all to go anywhere. Where's Sayaka in all this? She's not doing the fireworks. Hmm. Oh, with the candle. Ha! She did with the old candle. Hmm. There we go. Good best friend business. Hmm. Ah. Yeah, they both know something's wrong. Hmm. That's why she brought the candle in. Hmm. And she's not talking about it. Ah, and Sayaka's trying to press. Hmm. Ooh, she's your friend. You can talk about it. I love her biting her lip there like she's overstepped. Uh-huh. Well, girl. Oh my god, how did it escalate that fast? Ah. I forgot she wasn't really supposed to know, but mm. Yeah. That's some good friend stuff right there. Aw. Hmm. Aw. See, that's really good. I like that. That was sweet. And now you's gonna be like, well, you gonna tell me? Oh, oh no. Oh no. Hmm. And she's gonna be like, now you gotta tell me, girl. Hmm. And there's reasons why she told Sayaka, but not you. Oh, girl. Ah. Mm-hmm. Oh man, I realize that we only have 2 episodes of this left, and it's gonna get to me. I'm sure it will. It's gonna be a lot. Ah, how dare. I'm glad we finally got somebody that knew the sister and could say that, because I, it hadn't dawned on me entirely what he said until this episode, but it all makes perfect sense. It's like, yes, absolutely. And so now it all is like, uh-huh. We definitely will need to talk about this episode for sure. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. And that's it. Okay. All right. Well, good to know. Good to know. And so, yeah, I definitely think we need to talk about this. Well, well. Oh, this is a great episode. I like this episode quite a bit. So let's talk about this. Of course. I feel like next episode, if we're gonna stir up drama, it's gonna be you confronting Nanami about what's going on in the next episode. But we need to break down and talk through of why Nanami did not tell you specifically what was wrong with her and why she opened up to Sayaka, because I believe there's a reason for it, and we need to talk about that. So in this episode, I thought it was super cute. I love the idea of them all like hanging out together and them having this camp. If you've ever had to memorize anything, whether if you've been in a play before or if you've done competitive speech, I've done both. And I will tell you that memorizing is a lot of work. It is a lot of work. It's a lot of repetition. It's a lot of understanding the material. It's connecting it. And memorizing a script is not something like memorizing flashcards for a test, because you can cram those, take the test, and be done with it. With anything involving a script, you're acting it out. So you not only have to memorize what's being said, but as an actor, you have to figure out how to perform it. Now, we'll say that in comparison of memorizing scripts for acting versus like speeches, scripts for acting, I believe, in my mind, are a lot easier to memorize because there's that performative element, because you're playing a character, and that kind of lends it to be a little bit easier to perform out. That's my opinion anyway. I think memorizing just a hardcore speech is a lot harder, but what do I know? It's not like I coach it or anything. So yeah, I definitely think that they have a lot of work cut out for them, because they have to memorize this whole script and perform this play and do it in a certain amount of time. So it's really cool that they had this training camp to kind of get the ball rolling on that. And they also had someone come in with theater training to kind of teach them the vocal warm-ups. When they were doing the vocal warm-ups, there's like a bunch of different ones you can do. And I don't know exactly the purpose of the one that they did, but when we do ours, we do a lot of mouth movements, like you want your mouth to expand so you can articulate. But you also do things that like are tongue twisters to get your mouth and your vocal cords warmed up. So you'd be like red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather. Like they make you enunciate and use your voice and your mouth and your tongue to pronounce words and get yourself warmed up. There's a whole bunch you can do, but I thought that was cool to kind of see the ins and outs. I like that Kiyomi gets to go with them. That's really sweet. I like that they all get to go. I am sad Kiyomi doesn't stay with them. I really thought it'd be nice, but one, it makes sense for Kiyomi to commute, and it makes sense for her personality. And 2, then we couldn't have the love triangle scene in the bed with them. So it was all a nice little narrative ploy to get her to go away. Be like, no, don't worry about it. But it's kind of cool to get to stay in the school. I thought that was pretty awesome. Like, if I was in high school, I know it sounds lame and cheesy, but if I was in high school, I would love to have a lock-in at the school. It would make you kind of feel like it was exclusive. Like, oh, only us, only we were the only ones that got to stay in the school. What? Huh? I mean, that's kind of cool. I would have been all about that in high school. I would have loved it. So then, Nanami, here's the thing. We bookend with 2 different scenes. We bookend with the very beginning with Nanami saying, oh my gosh, it's been so long since I've seen you. It's been 10 days. And Yu's like, it's only been 10 days. It's not that big of a deal. And then we end the episode with Nanami, who supposedly has been wanting to hang out with Yu and wanting to see her all this time. And now she's distancing herself from Yu. And Yu's like, what the heck is going on? So I have a feeling next week's the penultimate episode for the season. I have a feeling that Yu is going to ask about it, right? And she's like, well, we just saw each other. So 3 days, right? So this is the second day, not the first day. So the actual episode ends on the end of the second day. Supposedly. I could be wrong. We could have just breezed past those days and been on the final day, but I don't think that was it. So we have this play, which honestly, dang, Kiyomi has a really good play. Like I didn't give, I think, this play a lot of credit when I first heard about it, but when they actually start talking about it, I'm like, this is pretty deep stuff for a high schooler to write. So I thought that was pretty cool. But this idea of Nanami not knowing what kind of person she is definitely a thing now that we've had the Ichiagi talk to her. So the girl who lost her memories and wants to learn about her former self. And of course, I like that Maki has to like nudge Daojima, being like, come on, get into it. Daojima is like the least into the acting bit, even though Yu is the one that wants to act the least. She's still involved in it. But they basically go about talking about the scripts. And he's like, well, everyone relied on you as student council president. You were cheerful and kind to everyone. So that persona of the student council president is based off of how Nanami is, which is how she is to everyone. She's kind to everyone. She takes on all these responsibilities. She's super studious. She's like really good in school. She does her best. Like that persona is based on her. And Nanami was basing that persona on what she thought her sister was like, which we find out in this episode is not the case at all, at least from his perspective, at least from the friend's perspective. So they go through that, and then we have the family saying, we don't remember the last time we had a real conversation. Now, here's the thing. We don't know enough about the family situation to really know if that's based in any reality or if Kiyomi's just making that up. But from what we've seen of her and her family's gatherings, the dad's like, hey, you're working real hard. You don't have to go so crazy. And Nanami's like, no, I'm good. And she was kind of short with him at the dinner scene. So maybe it is how it is. And then Sayaka is like, well, you aren't like that in front of the others. But with me, you're a crybaby and you always look for my attention. Which is not exactly how, it's not exactly how Nanami is. But it's on there. To me, it's funny because it feels like that's how Kiyomi thinks that Nanami is in secret with you, which is hilarious. So, but the thing of it is Kiyomi is questioning, is this the right ending? And I like the rationale. Like Kiyomi says, I picked this ending because the girlfriend chose to be with Nanami. So it only makes sense that Nanami would choose the persona of the girlfriend. It's not like the student council that depends on her. It's not like the family that they've always been together, but the lover is the one that she should pick. I thought that while it makes sense, I can see why Kiyomi's like, but this doesn't feel like it fits right. And I agree. I was trying to think in the reaction, like, what would be the solution? And the solution could be one, that maybe Nanami is a mixture of all three. And that's just each persona is part of her being. She's a complex person. So why can't she be a mixture of all three together and whatever else hasn't been shown to everyone else yet? Or the opposite of that is that Nanami says, well, I'm neither of these. I'm not what the student council thinks I am. I'm not what my parents think I am. And I'm not what my lover believes I am. I am my own person, but I'm not just these personas. I'm something else, something that's beyond that. I kind of like that ending better. The thing that I think is going to happen, because I love that Nanami pointed out, she's like, well, whatever you decide to do, can we make those changes now before we memorize the script? And I was like, no, that's so fair. That's so fair. What I think is going to happen, and I'm going to make predictions for these next 2 episodes, and I am prepared to be woefully wrong as we dive into them, because I didn't know what this episode was going to be like, and it's not what I thought at all. So I thought that this was going to be like a much more formal training camp, and we're going to get more one-on-one with the guy from the theater group helping, but that's not exactly how it went down, and in a good way. I think that this is either going to go one of 2 ways. I think that I think either Kiyomi is possibly going to change the ending, and maybe Nanami is the only one that knows, and she changes it for the play or whatever. Or I think that when Nanami, my theory, I think most likely will happen is when push comes to shove on the play, Nanami will be herself at the very end. And since it's on a stage, the audience assumes it's an act. It's not real, but it'll be the one time that maybe you and Sayaka notice that Nanami is herself, and she changes the ending to be how she wants it. I think that's what's going to happen, but I could be wrong. Who knows? And she's like, that's what's bothering me, is that your partner is someone who chose to be with you. So she's like, you would think that'd be the right answer. And I like that idea of the partner is someone who chose to be with you. So that's going to go back to you picking Nanami. And it's like, So I'm super interested to see how they end up taking this storyline and what we go with them. So I like that they're honest saying the training camp didn't get very fired up. I like they're very honest being like, we're literally memorizing scripts. like it's not going to be anything crazy. Because yeah, whenever you do like lock-ins or stuff, it's like, it's not fun and games. You're memorizing a script. Like we've got to, what's fascinating to me is like the scripts they have are all like horizontally. They're like landscape, so they can read across. Whereas in English, they'd be portrait. So that's just little formatting things, which is fun. But anyway, so we would be spending 2 nights at the school with just student council members. So, okay. So this was the first night is them all staying in. So then the next night, so potentially episode 12 could be the second night there. Or maybe they'll just show like a scene, because I doubt that Nanami's going to want to talk. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if next episode will start with the second night there and Nanami's not going to want to talk to you, and then it's just going to kind of fizzle over into the next or boil over, or if next episode is going to be about that talk. I don't know. I want to see next episode already. To see what's going to happen, damn it. But I don't know yet. So the first day ends, and they all have this like room to hang out in, which is pretty awesome. It feels like is it like one of the nursing rooms, like one of the nursing stations? Something I noticed about this episode, maybe it's just the way that it's animated, was that Sayaka, other than her arms looking very tiny and T-Rexy holding that book, her body looked a little bit more filled out in this episode. So when they talked about going to the sauna, I didn't know if we were going to talk about like body image or things like that. I didn't know if we were going to touch base on that. Again, I've reacted to Stars Align. You should go check it out. But there's like issues like that happen in that series, which is a sports anime. But Sayaka she's like, oh, we're all going to the bath together. And Sayaka's like, I've always been able to use women's baths and locker rooms without any issues. She's like, it's not like seeing a naked woman is going to, do anything to me. Which at first I was like, yes, because I think a lot of people, some inherent homophobia is that they're like, oh, well, if a girl likes a girl, she can't be in a locker room with girls or she'll try to hit on all of them. And it's like, no, it's like when you're out in public, you don't hit on if you're a girl that likes a guy and you're out in public, you don't hit on every guy that you see, obviously. And same thing with guys. They don't hit on every girl they see if they're in a heterosexual, sexuality. So it's not like that. That always frustrates me when people are like, oh, well, gay guys can't be in a locker room with heterosexual men because they might try to hit on them. I'm like, no, that's not true at all. Like, that's not how this works. But So I'm glad they address it. But then Sayaka says, I do have a crush on Nanami. So it's like, oh, well, then, yeah, that could be an issue, right? If it was like you and Akari and Kiyomi, Sayaka wouldn't care at all. But because Nanami's there, then there is a slight problem. What I love about this entire scene, like the entire night between the three of them, in every scene, all three of them are essentially just lying to themselves throughout the entire ordeal, right? So you, who has gone to multiple training camps, she's been for like softball training camps and stuff, she knows how it's like just whip it off and go, don't worry about it, and don't make a big deal about it, and it won't be a big deal. And so they're like, aren't you embarrassed? She's like, oh, I'm used to training camps, everybody gets together and it's totally fine. And she's like, it's important to not show any hesitation here. To avoid everyone trying to probe each other, it's best to make the first move. This is nothing. This is nothing. Both seeing her and her seeing me. So you being like me seeing Nanami and everything. She's like, it's fine. And then she sees Nanami and she's like, this is nothing. I love she stares and she's like, nope, we're good. So Yu is like lying to herself the whole time. Yu is like, I'm not bothered by seeing Nanami naked. Everything's fine. Yu has the best poker face out of all of them because they are all, Sayaka and Nanami are convinced that Yu is not attracted to Nanami in the slightest during these moments. And Yu very much is. She's just telling herself, nope. Yu is a lot stronger than she gives herself credit for. She thinks that she's not as tough as she is. And I'm like, girl, you have a lot of mental fortitude to get this far. Don't sell yourself short, girl. So I thought that was hilarious. And then of course, Sayaka is like, everything's fine. No big deal. We're all good. Even though she likes seeing Nanami. And Nanami is like, I can't make a scene in front of you because I like her. So what's interesting is that Nanami talks about how Yu's breasts are basically bigger than she thought. And then, of course, Yu's like, oh, everything's fine. She's like, oh, my God. So I do like just like this little simple conversation. She's like, calm down. She's like, I didn't plan this training camp with any ulterior motive like that in mind. But here we are. She's like, training camps are amazing. She's like, this is great. She's like, I didn't plan to enjoy this, but I'm having a great time. So these poor three women are just sitting there suffering in each other's silence. Meanwhile, Daojima's like, oh, training camps are okay, but you know. And then of course it's like, dude, like Daojima is instantly like, oh, two dudes sleeping together is kind of sad. And Maki's like, yep. Maki's like, I have nothing to contribute to this. Because Maki's like, AEC is like, okay, sure. The funniest part of their scene together is that Daojima's like, I wonder what the girls are talking about. And Maki imagines Sayaka being like, really, to you, who's like, I'm not trying to show any emotions. And then Nanami being like, oh my gosh, like Maki's version is a little bit more in line with what's actually going on. Daojima's like, I bet all the girls are just having little chit chats and sunflowers and everything's all great and dandy. And he's like, I bet they're having heaps of fun. He's like, let's charge in. And Maki's like, if you want to pursue that death wish, you go right ahead. I love that Daojima the whole time is like so full of anarchy. Like he's just chaos. He's like, let's barge into the bathhouse. Let's light the forest on fire with the fireworks. And Maki's like, are you okay, sir? Daojima is so chaotic and I kind of love it. He's just, bless his heart. So then we have the three of them all sitting down. What I also love about this series is that they kind of equally show each character and how they react to situations, like Nanami in front of the fan where she's like blow drying her hair and cooling off. I would honestly be Sayaka with the glasses, and I love her braid. And then the little matching pajamas. Super cute, reading her little book. And then meanwhile, like Nanami has her phone beside her and Yu's on her phone. Also, it's neat to see you with her hair down, which is super cute. But yeah, Sayaka's glasses look so natural on her that I didn't even realize until Nanami took the phone away after she took the photo that Sayaka doesn't normally wear glasses. It did not dawn on me. Maybe because in that other episode when she was at home, she was wearing them and that's why it didn't bother me. Meh. Anyway, Rico tells them all to go to bed. The picture of the three of them, I'm going to take a screenshot of it, where they're each holding each other as she opens up the door. Freaking hilarious. I love that moment. That is so funny. And she's just like, go to bed. You silly girls. I'm like, yes, ma'am. So what's interesting is that they talk about how they sleep. Nanami has to have some lights on and she looks like a fan person, whereas Sayaka and you both are like pitch black. I have a night light. I'm kind of like Nanami. I don't like pitch black, but I can sleep in pitch black, but I prefer to have a light on. I'm not a picky sleeper. Some people are really picky sleepers. I'm honestly not. I have a hard enough time sleeping as it is. And plus I'm a really heavy sleeper. So like once I'm asleep, girl is out. I'm like out and about. Once I'm down for the count, I'm a heavy sleeper. So I'm not usually bothered. So if it's whether the TV's on or whether a fan's on or whether it's dark or light, I'm not a big fan person, but I can do a TV. If a TV's on, I can fall asleep to that. But I know some people that like they have to have a fan on or it's not happening. And I'm like, I don't want to become dependent upon such things. So I just kind of, I can adapt. I can be a sleep chameleon if need be. But I love the three of them sitting there. And it's kind of like what's interesting is that Sayaka, all three of them agree that they need that other buffer there to keep them from doing something they're not supposed to be doing. So Sayaka, she's like, I've never been this close to Nanami. She's like, I could reach out and touch her, but what gets me is that in that moment, Sayaka is like, but if I did that, it would all be over. And I would probably never be this close to her again. What's so sad is that all three of them are denying each other the right to be closer because they're afraid that taking those 2 steps closer will make them be forced to take 3 steps back. And that's probably the saddest part of this episode is that all three of them want to be closer to one another, but they're afraid of rejection and they're afraid of abandonment and what would happen if it wasn't reciprocated. The sad thing is Sayaka's kind of in the worst boat because I don't think Sayaka's unrequited love, I think, is the saddest because, Nanami likes you. And Nanami appreciates and loves Sayaka as a friend, but not in a romantic way like what Sayaka would want. So I do feel for Sayaka because I've been in her boat before where you like somebody, but you're afraid like if I cross that threshold, I know what the answer is going to be and I don't want to ruin being able to be that close to them. I know exactly what Sayaka feels like. Yeah, because I think Sayaka knows that if she tried to ask Nanami out, Nanami would reject her. My thing is, I don't think Nanami would recoil from Sayaka like Sayaka thinks that she will. Sayaka believes that the moment she tells Nanami that she likes her, Nanami's going to be like, oh, well, thanks, but no, I don't feel that way. And she thinks that Nanami would distance herself from Sayaka. After this episode, I don't think so. I think that Nanami would probably be like, I don't feel the same, but based on the fact that Nanami opened up to Sayaka and told her all the things that she did, I think Nanami would still be friends with her because she knows that Sayaka's her friend at the end of the day. So I think that's the case. But I do feel bad for Sayaka because she would like to be friends with Nanami and she would like to be closer with Nanami. And then when she says, if it were just the two of us, would I be able to hold myself back? Which is a great question. She's like, would I be able to be as restrained if you wasn't here? Then you go to Nanami, and the moment that we see Nanami's not even thinking of Sayaka, which to me is like, okay, Nanami is not interested in Sayaka that way. Instead, she's like, I could do something with you. And she's like, no, Sayaka's right there. I don't want to do that in front of Sayaka. That wouldn't work. She's like, I'm glad, if Sayaka wasn't here, it could get dangerous. Then you have you. And you's just like, well, could I touch her? No, I probably shouldn't. I love the escalation that it goes. She's like, no, I can't do that. There's no room to even ponder that when Psyche is here with us. And then she turns over and they all three say at the same time, they're like, it's good that it's the three of us because otherwise, if it wasn't, thank God all three of us are here or something was going to go down. I like the levels though. Like Sayaka's was like this sad, unrequited love. Nanami was like, I could get down and dirty, but we're not going to do that. And then you's like, well, do I touch her? Like it's just 3 levels, like the innocent spectrum is all over the place, right? So the next day happens and they all are focused on their scripts. And then we have the community theater group Ichigaya Tomoyuki, who I love his eyes. His like eyes are very almond shaped, right? So community theater. I love the idea that Rico and him are in community theater. She's an English teacher. I'm not surprised by that. But him grew up with Mio and was in school with Mio, with the sister, which one thing I like that this series has chosen to do is make Mio 7 years older than Nanami, because 7 years doesn't seem like a long time, but in high school world, it is a long time, because it is long enough that the classmates, like if you think about it, in Japan, you have your 3 years, you have first year, second year, third year. Well, she would have been in elementary school during all of that. So just about to be in middle school. So by the time that Nanami was even a first year, anybody that would have known Mio is already gone. They're already out of school. So she has a whole clean slate. So that's kind of worked to Nanami's illusions this whole time, because Nanami only has to go off of what she's heard about her sister, how her sister presented herself to her when they were at home, and just what some select people I'm sure have told her. And the instructors, they probably knew Mio because she was a school president, but they only saw Mio from the outside. They saw the Mio that Ichigaya talks about, everyone else saw, but the real friends knew how she actually was, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. So for all that Nanami, for all intents and purposes, Nanami has been crafting a persona of her sister based on this outside persona that was projected. But the hilarious thing is that Ichigaya is kind of like, no, your sister wasn't like that at all. She just made everybody believe that she was. And that's the thing. Everybody puts on a persona depending on what situation you are in. It's just, you would be amazed at how many people put on personas. I put on a persona when I'm at work. I am not the person that I am with my friends. Like, you have to put on a professional appearance. And when you're talking to parents or students, you have a different frame of mind than you do when you're hanging out with your friends. You have a work persona that's different than how you are outside of work. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's part of being professional, but that's how everyone is, or most people are. So it is kind of sad that Nanami didn't realize that until now. And it's like, oh girl, you're just now having your worldview completely rattled. And the moment that he looked at Nanami and was kind of like, because that's the thing. When the student council decided to not do the play, I wondered, and I don't remember if I talked about this back when that episode was going on, I wondered if one of the reasons why they didn't decide to do it was because nobody was really that invested in it. And they were just like, and it wouldn't seem right to do it without her. So they were like, no. But another option I had considered was that it was something special to her. But here's my thing. If it had been something that was near and dear to her heart, you would have think that they would keep the play going and like make it in her honor or something to like finish it out. But they didn't. They just dropped it. So I was like, did it really matter that much to her? And apparently not really. So it's Nanami that's the one taking the reins and becoming the good student council member. So interestingly enough, he's like, well, I'm an alumni from here. And then we see like all the friends coming over. There's like several of them. The one girl kind of looks like a sister to the basketball player that's with Araki. Kind of looks similar to her, interestingly enough. And then, yeah, they see her with her green cardigan and everything. I love the spacing of the room here as well. I love how we see like everything in the student council room and they're kind of like in the background, which is neat. But he's like, the girl used to hide behind her sister is now the student council president. And he's like, yeah, let's make this play a success. And I'm like, sure. So then we see Sayaka. And Sayaka has overheard all of this. So she overheard the conversation about the sister and him. I'm not surprised that Sayaka knows about the sister. I'm not surprised. I will talk about that at the end of the episode with Nanami opening up to her, but not to you. We'll talk about that. But I'm not surprised that Sayaka knew about the sister. That makes a lot of sense, right? But Sayaka, of course, doesn't want Nanami to be sad. So there we go. So I really like the fact that he makes them practice in front of like the students coming to other training camps. Like they're practicing. School hasn't started back up yet, which I was a little confused about during the reaction. But basically, Araki and them are doing their own training camp while they're doing their theater training camp, which is a public school. You'd figure, right? I love how Maki's so serious. Maki in the background of this episode, he's trying so hard. He's doing his best. But I like that Ichigai is like, Daojima, you could be a good actor. Go for it. When Daojima told Kiyomi, he's like, good job, Shakespeare. I'm like, you flirt. I am definitely rooting for Daojima and Kiyomi. I think they'd be a cute couple. Mm-hmm. Kiyomi tamed this wild beast with his potential firework arson. And she wasn't there for that. She wasn't present for the firework arson. She'd gone home by then. That's what was missing. If she'd been around, he probably would have been better behaved. But I do like when Maki's like, why do we have to practice in front of all these people? And Ichigaya is like, well, you're going to be on stage performing in front of hundreds. If you can't do a vocal warm-up in front of some basketball players walking by, you think you're going to perform on stage in front of all these people? Let's be real. But I also like when they ask Nanami and them what they're doing and they like root them on. It's super cute. I also like the way that Yu is hanging out over with Yu is hanging out over by Maki and Daojima, which is nice. Nanami's over with Kiyomi and them practicing. Sayaka looked really like she was sweating in part of this, like she was fanning herself. So I thought for a hot second that Sayaka would like pass out or something. I don't know if that's going to happen next episode, but I thought she was maybe like having like a heat stroke. So, because she was acting a little bit weird throughout this episode. But yeah, so Nanami makes the list of all the equipment. And that's when the one guy is impressed by it. And he's like, oh, okay. And then he's like, well, I thought a student council president was someone who ordered everyone else around while they took it easy. And then Nanami's like, what? Nanami's entire world is shattered because what he just described sounds an awful lot like the previous student council president who did exactly that. And she's like, well, I'm trying to be my sister who is not like the former student council president. And Ichigai is like, no, actually that's how she was. It's like, oh, the moment he said that, I was like, that's funny that you said that. So then here's the thing, Daojima. One thing I'm glad that the teacher addresses, and I'm going to call her Rico because it's easier to say, but one thing I'm glad she addresses is she tells all of them, she's like, why are you calling me Rico? I'm Mrs. So-and-so. And it's like, fair girl, you do that. But Daojima does something that you should never do with a teacher. Don't ask about your teacher's personal life. Just don't. Because it's not your business. And that can be really uncomfortable for a lot of teachers. My coach, when I was in college, the coach that I had, there was this girl on our team and she was kind of like Daojima. She put her nose where it didn't belong. And my coach wasn't married. And she was like, well, why aren't you married? And he's like, I don't want to be. And she's like, well, why don't you do this? And why did you do that? And he's like, and finally he got really annoyed. And he's like, because it's none of your business. And I was like, yeah. So it's like, I didn't really like Daojima trying to kind of like out. I don't think he was trying to out Rico on purpose. But it's kind of like, you don't ask your teachers about their professional relationship. Like, that's a no-go. And I like that Ichigai is like, I got a girlfriend. We're fine. We're just in a theater group together. So Nanami wants to go question him and ask about the sister. And I don't blame her for wanting to ask about Mio because, honestly, she doesn't know a lot about Mio. I mean, her family, I'm sure, can tell her things. But one, it's still a point of grief for her family. So I'm sure maybe they don't openly talk about it. But two, they don't know how she was at school. And all of her friends are so much older than Nanami. She can't really reach out to them, if she didn't exactly know them. So she asks how Mio was. And he's like, well, good question. And then he proceeds to tell Nanami about how Mio was as a student council president. She made herself look good with speeches and the like, but she bossed all of us around. She liked to just boss us around, and people who didn't know the real her would talk about how cool she was. So in some respects, she was a bit like Nanami. She wasn't always cool, and she bossed them around and made them do things. which is not like how Nanami is. I almost brought White Board Kun out because I was going to do like Nanami versus the sister, and I might do that for episode 12. But you basically have, you know, Nanami. Nanami is responsible. She's resourceful, and she does a lot of the work herself, and she puts on this presence, and she is cool. And under the surface, you know, she doesn't think that she's a student, but I think she kind of is. She just doesn't want to admit it. And she is kind of like insecure and can be worrisome, but she has this perseverance about her. And so a part of me, you know, feels bad for Nanami because Nanami is like, she's built this whole persona and has been able to work under it under the guise that she's acting like her sister. But now we come to find out her sister wasn't exactly like that either. Her sister was really imperfect. Her sister, you know, had a lot of struggles in school. She had her friends help her, and she didn't do all the work herself. She delegated a lot of it. So Nanami's kind of having like, she had all this summer homework to do and they all helped her. They're like, mimicked her handwriting so that people would think that it was hers. And they're like, but we all kind of liked her. And I feel for Nanami because Nanami has tried to convince herself this whole time that she has to be like her sister to like honor her memory and to be a better person. But I'm like, all along, she wasn't being like her sister. She was just being something else. So now it's like, is Nanami going to have a conflict or a crisis of identity because the person she's been trying to be is not that? So, I mean, what do you do with that information? Do you think, okay, well, if this wasn't my sister, is this who I am? Or is this just a persona I've made up and it's not me? It would be kind of a crisis moment. So I don't blame her for being upset. And he's like, yeah, she used to, you know, boss us all around and use us as she pleased. But for some reason, we all liked her. So, yeah, they all kind of got along with her because of her personality. But, and then of course, she's like, the Mio I knew did everything perfect. And I looked up to her. And that's when Ichigaya is like, well, yeah. He's like, you're her sister. You're her little sister. She wanted you to think highly of her. And it's like, I'm glad he was honest with her, but it's like a bomb to Nanami. And he's like, I can't imagine her being perfect. You're a much better president than she is. And that gets Nanami because she's like, what do you mean I'm a better president? And I'm like, I would take that as a compliment, but I could see how Nanami is very frustrated by that because she's like, well, then who have I been imitating? And she said in the last episode, she's like, I have to become my sister. And then you find out that her sister's not perfect. And it's like, oh, well, then what do we do? And so he's like, you two are really nothing alike. And I feel for Nanami, but I'm like, I wouldn't take that as a bad thing to not be unlike your sister. But then we have, you know, then with the fireworks, and poor Nanami, of course, she's sitting back away from everybody. And these are like the tamest fireworks ever. But I don't blame Rico. On the one hand, these are like the tamest fireworks ever. They're the least dangerous fireworks ever. I'm thinking of like the USA, and we're like blowing buildings up with our fireworks. But I understand why Rico is like, you all are not getting any fireworks more dangerous than what could possibly. She's like, we're near a school building. We are on school property. You are getting the tamest PG, like G-rated fireworks ever because I am not going to be liable for you setting the forest on fire, Daojima, which he nearly does anyway. It's really funny. And then I like that they're actually from Miyako. Like Miyako, her girlfriend or her wife is like, here, take these. And she's like, how dare you? She's like, I'm going to get fired because of this. So then Yu tries to get Nanami's attention with the fireworks. And it is sad. I do feel sad about Nanami, you know, having her worldview completely shattered. But Yu tries to like make her feel better. And she's like, hey, what's wrong? And then Nanami gives the little internal monologue where she talks about how nice Yu is, that she's so kind. And Yu is just like, are we good? You're smiling, so I'm assuming that's a good thing. And she's like, I want to take advantage of her kindness. But how much will she accept? And then she goes over there and she puts on the fake smile. And she's like, I'm afraid that I'll use her kindness until it's all gone. So I wondered what she was going to do in this moment, but she puts on the fake smile and says that everything's okay. And Yu immediately knows that something is wrong. She's like, why can't you? I think Yu's whole thing is she's like, why can't you talk to me? Yu's like, and we have this is where we have the dilemma. Because Nanami knows that Yu is kind. Nanami knows that Yu is so nice that no matter what Nanami does, Yu is always going to have her back. And she does take advantage of that. She takes it for granted. She's like, but Nanami's aware she's taking it for granted. She's like, I know I'm using her because she's nice. It's like the one moment where she's delegating as student council president. She's like, you're going to be my friend. And I know you're too nice to say no. And so I'm going to use that. And that's how it's going to be. She's like, I'm not ready to open up to you. I think she doesn't want to open up to you because Yu is brutally honest. And you will be like, well, if you're not like your sister, it's okay. Be yourself. And Nanami's not ready to hear that. So she knows that she can just put on this act around Yu, and Yu's not going to confront her about it or be mad because Yu's too nice. And I think Yu eventually is going to reach her breaking point, which might happen next episode or even in episode 13, since the manga goes beyond, and will be like, no, you can't keep doing this. The thing about Sayaka is, I feel like Nanami is okay opening up in front of Sayaka because Nanami knows that Sayaka's not going to say anything against it. Sayaka's going to have her back because she's her friend, and she doesn't want to distance herself from Nanami. So Nanami is being a little bit selfish in this episode because she's kind of, I don't want to say she's taking advantage of her two friends, but she is very much in the position of knowing that both of these women, Sayaka and Yu, want to be close to her. And she's like, I know that I can tell Sayaka about my sister, and Sayaka is not going to question me. Sayaka is not going to challenge me. She's just going to listen and go, well, that's really sad. Okay, yep, I feel bad for you. And she's not going to try to challenge anything that Nanami does because she doesn't want Nanami to distance her. And that's what Nanami wants in that moment. If she tells Yu might challenge her, and that's not what she wants. So she's like, I know Yu's not going to be mean, and I know Yu's not going to leave me, so I'm going to take advantage of this moment to kind of have my cake. Nanami loves to have her cake and eat it too. And I feel like it's going to hurt Yu's feelings because Yu's like, I thought we could do anything around each other. I thought that was okay. What's going on? And so I feel for Yu a lot in this moment. I wish they would have done with the fireworks like the ED from Yuri on Ice. I wish they would have done it because it's such a cute ED. I wish they would have danced around with the fireworks, but that's fine. So then Nanami opens up to Sayaka and tells her what's going on. And I like that Sayaka brings the candle over for the one fireworks. And Sayaka's like, just go ahead and tell me about your sister. And I like this moment where the two of them are just sitting there with the fireworks, letting them drip. It's a different ambiance than the other fireworks, but it's like, lets them have this moment. And she's like, but my sister, who I thought she was and who I am, are completely different, and I don't know what to do anymore. And so Sayaka, she's like, okay. And then, of course, like, I literally, look what Daojima's done. They're like, you're too close to it. And she's like, did you know about my sister? And she's like, I did know about it. And here's the thing. Sayaka doesn't tell Nanami what to do once she hears this information. She just hears Nanami out and lets her get that off her chest and waits for Nanami to make the move, which is a good thing. Sometimes you don't have to respond to friends when they're having a crisis. You can just sit there and listen. So Sayaka does the good thing as a friend. And I'm not saying it's bad that she doesn't challenge Nanami. She does what any friend would do, especially knowing what we know about Sayaka. But what is so frustrating is that Nanami doesn't tell you because she doesn't want to be challenged by her. But in any case, Sayaka says, and she's like, she's like, I'm sorry that I found out about that. And Nanami's like, well, I'm fine that you know because you're not going to challenge me, And Sayaka, of course, that just makes her day. She's like, oh, well, because Sayaka's like, oh, well, I want to feel like I'm the best friend and that Nanami can always depend on me. Because again, Sayaka said, if Nanami's ever done with you, she still has Sayaka to rely upon. And that's why she keeps her love unrequited. And then she's like, thanks for worrying about me. And of course, Sayaka's like, oh, well, this is the best day ever. Even though, it's still unrequited. But then poor Yu is kind of left out to the side and is like, well, what about me? What are we going to do? And Yu's pretty selfless. So I don't know if Yu's going to be jealous or bothered by all of that. But I think she's going to be like, if you love me, you could definitely tell me about what's going on. But okay. So, oh my God. But yeah, we have 2 episodes left. 2 episodes left. So that's fine. Everything's great. Nothing's wrong. But yeah, I'm super excited to see what goes down next week. It's going to be hard to wait, but I also am curious to know what you all think of this episode and what you all think of this situation. So in any case, I'm curious to know your thoughts down below, but I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'm back real soon with more Bloom Into You. Bye.